Welcome back to Speak Your Own Business. Today's episode is the first in a really exciting series we're doing where we sit down with published author and business coach Steve Jones to break down the thinking behind his books and, more importantly, how you can actually apply it in your own business. Now, Steve is the founder of Skills for Business Training and brings a huge amount of real world experience. He was part of the management team at Fitness First during one of the UK's most impressive business growth stories, helping scale the company from just a handful of clubs on the South Coast to the largest health club chain in Europe and then the world in just 7 years. And since then, he has worked with lots of businesses, helping them build stronger teams, clearer strategies, and ultimately more sustainable growth. Now, today, we're diving into his first book, Turning on Your Profits tap, and unpacking why so many businesses struggle to turn growth into actual profit and what to do about it. So, welcome, Steve. How are you doing today?
Yeah, thanks for that lovely introduction. I didn't recognise myself.
Yeah.
um,
Uh,
Thanks very much.
yeah.
That's a lovely introduction. Yeah, I'm good today. Thank you.
Oh, that's very good. Yeah. So, can you give us just a very quick rundown of this book so our listeners have a little bit of context before we dive into it? What was it about?
Yeah. Okay. So, I left Fitness First, obviously, and I wanted to do something with my life because I still had a lot of work left in me. So, I started helping companies with their growth. I then got involved with an international coaching organisation called Sherlaws. They specialise in fast growth businesses. So, I looked at their tools, methodologies, and techniques, and it mapped perfectly my Fitness First journey. So, I had both the toolkit and the experience. But one of the things that I noticed really early on with working with entrepreneurs is everybody who starts a business who's an entrepreneur has a passion. So they love what they do. And then suddenly they start a business and they can't do what they love because they run a business. Okay. So, I started to look at it, and then I realized there's about 180 things a business owner needs to do in order to actually run their business. And I wanted to make, and I just thought 180 things. Now, the next question, and it started from a presentation I used to do on Position Your Business for Success, this book. Every time I ran this particular workshop, and I spoke about it, everybody came up and said, "Have you got a book?" And I said, "No, and I've not got time to write one." But anyway, I caved in the end and wrote it. But those 180 things, basically, most business owners, if they have staff, they have a job description. So when we look at those 180 things, that's the job description of a business owner or an entrepreneur. Now, did you really sign up for that? No, you didn't. Actually, you signed up to do what you love, and now you're running a business. So it's all a little bit scary. So what I wanted to do with this book is actually, if you're going to generate revenue business and you want to be profitable, let's just scale it back and let's look at the core things you need to do. So I try to create a context for looking at all those 180 things easily and effortlessly, so you know where to put your focus and your time, so that you can get the results you want. So the profits is basically an acronym for what you need to do, basically, in order to be successful. And it just tried to make it very simple, and each chapter of the book picks one of these and works on it. So you can work out where you're weak, where you're strong very quickly, and then from there you can work out where you need to put your attention. And if you understand business, you'll understand that systems run business and people run systems. So you
Mhm.
need a system. If you've got a system for your business, it's going to be successful. If you're trying to do it ad hoc, you're just trying to bake a cake with the same recipe when you haven't written it down. So
Mm.
when you have a recipe, you follow it and you get the same cake. When you don't have a recipe, you don't follow it and the cake is never quite the same. It's the same in business. If you've got a system and you follow it, you're going to get the outcomes, hopefully, that the system will bring you. So it's the same in business. It's thinking about what are the key, where do I need to put my focus? Because you'll know yourself, if you've got 180 things you've got to focus on, and you and you come back and you meet your partner after a busy day and they go, "What you been doing?" Well, I've been really busy, but I couldn't tell you what I've done. Okay. That's the kind of typical story. And actually, I don't want to talk about it because it's so painful and hard work. I just want to relax. So it's just to help people think more contextually around, actually, and strategically around, okay, what are the key areas? Where's the focus? Where do I need to put my focus to get the results I want? So that was the idea behind the book. And I wrote it really for entrepreneurs to help them understand how to systemize their business, really.
Wow, that's a lot. There's a lot in there. And I think even as a business owner myself, I can relate to, you want to start a business, you've got passion. I always wanted a marketing agency, started it, and then a year down the line, I haven't done any marketing, maybe a little bit of
No.
marketing for the business. And I'm thinking, I don't know what I've done. A year's gone by, and it's
Yeah,
just because there's so much that needs to be done. And like you said, I'm running the business as opposed to, doing the marketing what I love. So yeah,
yeah,
that sounds like a brilliant resource, especially for entrepreneurs to sit down and be like, right, what do I need to do to make profit? Because that is the whole purpose of a business, right? Um, and one idea that really stood out to me there that you're talking about is the system, and it's that profit isn't an outcome, it is a system. Um, can you explain that in a little bit more detail, please?
yeah. Well, first of all, to pick up on your point about 180 things and being busy. So I looked at my business and I worked out after all the things I had to do in my business, I'd have 8 days that I could actually work with clients because the rest of it I'll be running my business. So then I had to look at my business model and go, right, if I want to earn X amount this year, first of all, I've got to take 2 months out because Christmas and summer, not much is going to happen. So between the second week of December and the second week of January, my business is nothing happens. Okay. And then in the summer, because I work with teams primarily, they're all on holiday. So typically I've got to earn what I want to earn in 10 months. So then if I've got to earn that in 8 days per month, then it's set. Then you would, first of all, you can work out how much whether you're viable and whether you should be charging what you're charging. So I had to work out a day rate based on 8 days, and then I needed to make sure I was full capacity. So really, I want to make it 5 days, so I've got spare capacity. Right. So I'm going off on a tangent a bit here. Sorry.
Go for
So
it.
if we look at the key things, the key messages in the book, first of all, you need to understand your purpose. So the P stands for purpose. So why do you exist? What's your purpose? What are you trying to achieve? And what is your vision for your business? Because you started it, but what's the vision for your business? And so start to think about that and talk about why, I meet a lot of SMEs have great stories, but they don't talk about their stories. They talk about what they do and how they do it, but you need to understand why you're doing it, and you need to talk about why you're passionate and why you're different. And the second thing is, and it's really is the R stands for, are you relevant in today's society? And right now with AI, I mean, I wrote this book before AI was on the scene. AI is killing some industries and making other industries really brilliant. So it's looking at the impact of AI on your business. For instance, if you're a taxi driver, we'll have cars that don't need drivers. Okay. We have accountants that do all the accounting. It's just a wet signature, really. The rest can be done by AI. So it's going to be very interesting as we move forward. And for my business, you can get the best people in the world talking about what I do free on YouTube. Okay.
Mhm.
So why would you spend money with me? Why would you spend money at the universities? So the challenge is there for all of us to stay relevant. So we need to think about that. And the O stands for, so you might have a purpose, you might be relevant, but you still need to outclass the crowd. And it's a conversation we had about your business a little bit. What makes you different? What makes you stand out? And why would people buy you? And I break that down into 4 areas, and that's you have to know what your product is, you have to know what your market is, you have to know what your service is, and you have to know what you're going to charge.
Mhm.
And to give the reason for that is, if you take, let's say, food shopping, we can go to all these Lidl's, Sainsbury's, Waitrose, we can go anywhere for our food shopping, but we walk into certain stores for certain reasons. So you walk into Waitrose because it's dripping chocolate. It's not about price. It's
Mhm.
about actually quality products and quality service. If you go to Aldi's, it's about actually cheap, good
Mhm.
stuff, and it's all designed around price. So again, it's the same with business. Who's your ideal client? My ideal clients these days is usually 20 to 200 staff upwards, because they've got the issues I deal with in the leadership spaces. So it's really, and I don't niche into a certain area. That can be generic across any organisation. So when people say you should niche into a certain area, I'm not too sure that's always right. Or unless
Mhm.
you're really sure it's the right thing to do. I think defining your generic offer, size of organisation, types of money you want them to pay you, whether they've got the budgets, that kind of stuff. So that's outclassing the crowd. So you've done purpose, you're now relevant, you've now worked out your positioning, but you're still the best kept secret. Okay. So you still got to get your message out. So how do you find clients? So in the book, one of the gems in the book is I talk about supermarkets, and supermarkets. I know I've been talking about supermarkets previously, but in a different frame. If you take Kellogg's cornflakes, they don't sell to you and I direct. They go and build a relationship with the supermarket. The supermarket puts their product on the shelf, and then people come and buy it. So I learned early on that actually my supermarkets were lawyers, accountants, IT companies, training organisations that hold all the clients I wanted, but didn't do what I did. And then I went and built a relationship with them and said, look, so I have a recruitment agency down in Poole, which I started with, and they would put all their top MDs in a room and I'd do a half-day workshop. That would position me as the expert. They would come in, we'd do a half-day workshop, and if I presented well, I would get business. So they were my supermarket. So one of the shortcuts for businesses is don't try and go cold call and find individuals. Who are your supermarkets? Who can you build a relationship with that could refer you all over town? Okay, so that was the supermarket model that I used to find clients. And then once you've found those clients, now let's say the idea behind this book is if I've got my position clear and I explain that to the supermarket, so in this case, let's say the accountancy firm, and they put me into their clients, I'm pre-sold. It's not a case of actually having to win the business. I've been positioned by my accountant as the expert, so the chances of winning the business is greater. So the next thing is finding clients, which we've done. So then the I stands for inspiration. So inspiration means, do you have an inspirational sales process? When you're in front of a client, are you inspirational and do they buy you? Okay. And are they clear on your position? So I've got a process for running those meetings to find out whether I'm positioned or not positioned, whether I've got to explain my positioning and how to find out their pain points before I deliver the solution. Okay, so it's relationship, it's not selling. A lot of people don't like sales. I don't do sales calls. I do. It's about relationship. If I can't help you, I'll be honest, I can't help you, or you're not the right client. So once you've done all of that and you've got the client on, the biggest challenge then is your time. So the T stands for time. So have you got the capacity? When you start off, when you've got 2 or 3 clients, it's great, you can love them to bits. But suddenly I had a client today in an HR capacity who's just taken on 18 clients. She's onboarding them all and she's doing it all herself. So that's a real struggle. So she's got a capacity issue. She's a victim of her own success. Okay, her positioning's strong, and now she has to deliver, and she's got challenges around recruiting staff to do the delivery. So we look at that time management. So if you're a solopreneur, like we were talking about earlier, how many days delivery can you give before you actually can't give? How do you then? So she's worried about not providing a good service to those clients because she's got too many balls in the air. So teaches you how to manage your time and plan for those eventualities before they happen. And it's kind of capacity planning. And then the final part is the S, which is you've got to do all of this and serve clients well. So you've got to give them a great service. And if you do all of that well, what's going to happen is they're going to come back and buy more off you. So there's going to be repeat business, but they're also going to refer you all over town. If you've had a great experience with somebody, they're going to refer you. So it becomes like turning on a tap. Once you get the process and it's running properly, and I built it so that it's like a funnel. So at the top, if your purpose is, if you did a tick cross neutral, for example, if your purpose is clear, give it a tick. If you're relevant, give it a tick. If you know you're outclassing the crowd, give it a tick. If you know you can find clients and if you know you can close clients, give yourself a tick. And if you know you've got the capacity, give yourself a tick. And if you know you can deliver great service, give yourself a tick. Now, if there's a cross or a neutral in any of those, that's your blockage to making your profit. Okay. So to give you an example, if your positioning was incorrect, you might be having lots of meetings with people who won't buy your service. Okay. Which means you've got loads of capacity, but you're not making any money. The flip side is that client I've just spoken about where her positioning is so strong, she's just taken on 18 clients. So her positioning is so strong, but she hasn't planned her capacity. Therefore, she's going to limit her ability to make profit. Okay, so it's just a way of thinking about your business. Are we doing these things well? And it's funny, I built this for entrepreneurs and SMEs, but when I run it with corporates, they have the same challenges that
Mm.
in their teams. So that's the idea of the book, is to simplify those 180 things you need to do into key components that you need to focus on to build the growth in your organization.
Wow.
And
Yeah, that is a lot. Do you know what? Let's bring up the slide
okay,
if you're able to
yeah.
share your screen.
So basically, there's your purpose. So why do you exist? What's your vision for your organization? How relevant are you as an individual? Given that AI is coming in,
Mm,
do you know how to outclass the crowd? That's your product, market, service, price. Do you know your positioning in the marketplace? And again, you're still the best kept secret. So the next thing is, do you know how to take that position and find clients? That's the supermarket. How do you build your relationships? How do you find your clients? And if you do that well, how good are you when you're in front of them actually in the sales process? So how do you make sure you close the deals? Having a process for that. And then actually, if we do all that well, the challenge will be capacity and time. How do you build your capacity and time in order to deliver that? What's your pinch point? Are you going to stop the business growing because it's just you? And then finally, can you do all of this and deliver a fantastic service? Because if you do, then they will buy more from you because they'll see you as relevant, and they will refer you all over town. And the
mm.
question mark is, does your business look like this? Okay. And if it does, you'll generate revenue and there will be flow in your business. Any blockage in any of those hinders your ability to make money.
Okay. And you talk about businesses leaking profit then. What
Yeah.
does that actually mean? And where does that happen on
Right.
this?
So it will happen. Well, first of all, purpose is fine, but you need to be relevant, obviously. So that's one of the challenges. Outclassing the crowd. If your positioning isn't clear, then you're going to have lots of cups of tea with people who are the wrong people. Okay, and you're
Yeah.
not going to you're not going to convert because when I started out, before I realised this, I was having cups of tea with people who couldn't afford what I was offering.
Mm,
So you need to be clear on your positioning and clear that you're going to get the right clients contacting you. Then, if you're going to find clients, how do you go about that? If you've got the first three are great, but you're still the best kept secret. So the next thing that's going to hinder you from making money is if you can't find those clients that need your service. So
mm,
you almost need to think in reverse. What? So most people work out what they can do for a client and then go and sell it. But what if you went to your clients and said, "Why do you buy me?" and work in reverse? Okay. So reverse engineer it. So if I know these are the challenges of my business, how do I design products and services to meet those challenges? Okay, so that you'll know you're selling to an audience because of what they want, not because of what you want. Finding clients again, the supermarket model, if you can do it, it takes a bit of time. But I taught this to a business owner, and he earns 100K a year off one accountant firm that was supplying with clients all day long. So there's that in the book, but also how do you find clients? And then when you've got those clients, are they the right clients and are you closing them? That's the inspirational sales.
mhm,
And then the challenge on capacity. So that woman with 18 clients just suddenly coming on in 1 week has got a real challenge around capacity. So she could destroy her whole business because actually she's not providing a service. So
mm,
all of these can impact your ability and leak profit if you're not careful, if you're not thinking about actually this is a system and making sure that you're ready for any upturn, any downturn, any situation. And then of course you've got to deliver. And we all know that if you're running a business, you've got 180 things and you've only got 8 days. Um, like you said, actually delivering
mm.
my service is kind of the last thing I end up doing now because I'm running a
Yeah.
business. Okay.
Mm,
So and then everybody wants you. They don't want your staff. They want you as well. So it's how you separate yourself out from that and get people to do business with the business, not just with you as well. So there's lots of ways you can leak profit if you're not focused on getting this whole system right. If that makes
yeah.
sense.
No, it does make sense. And that is actually, that's the scary part, because a business can look successful on the outside, but then underneath it can actually be quite inefficient actually, by what you're saying there, because of, like you said, the the underpricing, or the over delivery without margin, or inefficiencies, wrong clients, etc., etc.
Yeah, we can fall foul in any of these areas inadvertently. If you think you've got your positioning right, but you really are getting phone calls or getting contacts from people who can't afford your service, then you really have got your positioning incorrect. And it's just a case, and that's the other thing about pre-qualifying your clients as well. Don't meet everybody. Find out whether they're the right clients before you spend time going to meet them. For your business, let's say the average spend is 5 million, 5 million, 5,000 or 10,000 on a website or whatever, on a marketing campaign. Is that bracket right for them? If not, and that comes down to you identifying the size of organisations you're going for that have budgets for these things and have the challenges that you resolve.
Hmm.
So start to look, for my leadership program. I need leadership teams of fast growth businesses. So it's no good me focusing on a startup. They're not in that situation. They haven't got the challenges. The business owner can manage, but later on the entrepreneur has to become a business owner. He has to let go and he has to build a leadership team. That's where I would come in and work with a leadership team. So it's understanding who your ideal client is, whether they have the money to spend with you, and whether you can position what you do to solve a problem they've got, basically.
Okay, yeah. And then I guess moving to the practical side of things then. So if someone listening right now feels that like this sounds familiar, where should they start?
Well, obviously they can buy the book. The QR code's on the right-hand side there, and read it. They can contact me if they want any help. Just a quick sales thing there. But I basically wrote the book just to help people think differently, and think systematically around their business. But I would just, you don't need my book. You can look at this and go, right, do I do all of this? And if I don't, where do I need to put my focus? And can I do it myself, or do I need help? That's how I'd look at it.
Okay. Yeah. I
Because
think, yeah, carry on.
no, that's because I think it doesn't necessarily mean you've got to spend fortunes on coaches or consultants. It means actually
Yeah.
I know the area I'm weak now, and be honest with you, with AI now you could look up this stuff and you could work it
Yeah.
out. So
Yeah.
you don't, I'm doing myself a disservice here, but you don't need me. You probably can go, right, okay, how do I make myself relevant? Put all your information into ChatGPT or whatever, Claude, and say, how do I make myself relevant? Where's my sweet spot with clients? And it will tell you. How do I outclass the competition? How do I position myself? It will tell you. So you can probably build, if you put this into ChatGPT and said, build this for me,
Mm.
show me. I think there's a few things in the book that are useful, like the time management. So I've got a way of looking at time management in there, where you spend your time, where you should spend your time, and also how to plan your diary out so that you've got, so you can fit your clients in. There's a little whole section on that, which is quite useful. So there's some useful stuff like the supermarket principle. I explain it in more detail. I explain how to generate your 3-year vision with a visual representation rather than a linear, which is for banks. The 3-year vision is a visual representation, so it helps you join up the dots and think about your business a lot more easily than you would if you were trying to just do it for a bank. So yeah, I think with the help of ChatGPT, you could look at any area weak at and go, well, okay, how do I strengthen that area?
Yeah, I think AI is brilliant to do that and give you feedback. But there
Yeah,
is something comforting about approaching someone like yourself, a human, and knowing, okay, they know what they're doing in this area, and it's human to human. I think you'll never be
yeah.
able to replace that. But all AI is brilliant as well. Um,
Yeah, I think it's horses for courses. I think one of the things I found when I started working with a lot, when I used to run these workshops, I used to get a lot of people who couldn't afford my services. So it was just a
yeah,
case of giving them a framework and off they went. And some of them have come back later when their businesses are more established, and I work with them. But it's really, this is aimed at helping people just think differently, regardless of whether they buy my services or not, just to help them think differently, give them a context, uh, really a focus of, if I looked at these areas properly and religiously, I'd
Mm.
grow a nice business. I'd be able to grow a nice, profitable business.
Mm. I think the biggest takeaway for me is that profit isn't accidental. It's something that you clearly build into the business through the systems that are in place. And also that growth on its own isn't the goal, it's the sustainable, profitable growth. That is the
Yeah.
goal.
Well, yeah, because that's the challenge with that lady with 18 businesses coming on all at once. She's
Yeah.
got a real challenge around capacity that could actually challenge the reputation of her business as well if she doesn't get it right. So you just need to make sure that sometimes it's not always the best thing to take on that many clients. So one of the things you can do is actually, I know how many clients I want. I only need 4 or 5 to make this work. So I'm not going to go for 18. I'm just going to go for 4 or 5. And therefore I can charge, if I charge X, that's what I'll get. And then I'll build the capacity for the other 12 or so later on.
Yeah.
Um, so it's once you've done this, you know where your capacity, where your capacity limits are, and you can plan for it. Okay.
Mm.
So I'll give you an example in my business. So when I started out, I used to work 1-to-1 with clients, and then I realised I can only deal with 8 clients in a month because I had to run a business if I was going out daily. So what I did was I started to do group sessions, which meant I could do all those 8 clients in one day. Okay. And now what I could do now is I could grow it. I could do more business because I could do more clients per day because I was doing group stuff rather than individual stuff. Okay. So it just means when you start to look at this stuff and you realize I've only got 8 days, how could I extend that? It challenges you to think differently.
Mm. Mm.
So, um,
Yeah. I think that's my one of my issues. There's probably a better way to say this, but I'm just
yeah,
going to say it quite direct. It's one of my issues with a lot of I guess bigger agencies as well. They just try and work with everyone. And
yeah,
even if they're not the right fit, they'll just work with them because they're trying to get as much money in as possible. And I'll be completely honest, that is what we did right at the beginning, but then we quickly saw that that's not sustainable, that's not going to work because the time you waste trying to
yeah,
onboard clients who actually you can't get them onto a retainer, or they're just not right, or all of
yeah,
this, that
yeah.
is such precious time that you can't get back, and you could have invested in a client who is going to help you bring in sustainable profit.
Yeah, it's a fair point you raise. If you put the same amount of effort into a larger client, do less of them and earn more money. As simple as that, really. Um,
Yeah.
so but you learn that the hard way. You've done the hard yards. You've worked with companies. Now you've got to that point where you can pick and your sweet spot. Now if I work with 4 or 5 of these companies, I don't have to work with 20 of those companies because I make the same money
Yeah.
for the same amount of effort. But that's just a learning curve. There's not. And once you realise that, you realise where your sweet spot is, and then you specialise in it. So,
That's true. Yeah,
and
a
that,
learning
and that,
curve, a lesson.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I think all businesses go through it. You have to kiss a lot of frogs to find a prince, don't you? And then when you find a prince, I want more princes. I want more of those. They're our sweet spot now. And I've seen companies like yours where they give the clients they used to have to somebody who's where they were 4 or 5 years ago and say, right, you,
Yeah.
you can look after those. Our space now is this space. We've repositioned our business into this space because we've realised that's where we add the most value. Okay. Which is kind of where you are now by the sounds of it. You've kind of repositioned it to actually focus on a certain size of organisation
Yes.
with a certain budget. And that's great
Yeah.
because that means that it's very clear and that's where you can have most value. And also the clients you work with appreciate you because it's not about money, it's about the value you're delivering. So you've earned the right for that position.
That's good to hear. Thank you so much, Steve. This conversation has been really insightful. Um,
So I'll just flick out of that a second. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. And this is only the first episode in a series we are doing with Steve. So, over the next couple of months, we'll be diving into his other books. Yes, there are more, and unpacking those in the same practical way. So, definitely stay tuned for those. Have you got any last words that you would like to say or anything else before we wrap up?
I'd just like to say thank you for inviting me onto your podcast. It's been great. And if anybody wants to contact me, I think they can contact me through you. Get my details. I'm sure that you're going to put something out with this, I believe. So I won't
Yes.
bore you with my email and all that kind of rubbish. I'll just let you contact me if you want via Kiana.
Oh, thank you so much, Steve. And thank you for listening. As always, continue speaking your own business.